Berger, visiting Princess Alexandra Hospital on a flying visit, any observations?
Well, it was a fantastic visit. I was delighted to join Susie Stride on a visit of the hospital, to meet the Chief Executive Melanie, and to have a tour of the accident and emergency services, the paediatric side, and also the ambulatory care, which is helping to relieve some of the pressure. But it's clear that there's lots of challenges as a result of locally an increase in population, downgrading of other local services, which means that there's a lot of pressure on services in the hospital.
And you mentioned A&Es. Hospitals like Harlow's and the A&E are under incredible strain. If you get in next year, is there anything you can do about that?
Well, this hospital locally has 110,000 visits to A&E, which is quite unusual for an A&E of its size. Nearby hospitals have much fewer attendances, so it puts a lot of strain on the services. Obviously, only just today we're hearing news that people can't access an appointment at their GP, and it's this government that's taken away people's right to access those GP appointments, and they've reduced the amount of appointments that are available later and into the weekends. That makes a massive difference. If people can't access their GP, it's no wonder that they're turning up an A&E. And we've said that we had a debate on it in Parliament, and we asked the government to reinstate the target that was in place to ensure that people did have access to GP appointments. And we're very disappointed that the government voted against it not so long ago.
And in respect of your role in the Shadow Cabinet, what do you think is the greatest challenge you have to face at the moment?
Well, I'm in the Shadow Health team. I'm the Shadow Minister for Public Health, and we work very closely together. We're a small knit team under the leadership of Andy Burnham, who's our Shadow Secretary of State. There's lots of different challenges on our plate, but for us at the moment, A&E is obviously kind of really a focal point. It's an example of how the rest of the health service is doing. It's a barometer, and if A&E isn't working, then that's we think as a result of challenges right across the health service. So we're looking very closely at what's happening in A&E at the moment.
And these are major issues, but things like the vote regarding smoking in cars, is that something that we really should be dealing with right now, or do you think it's something that is not equally important, but important?
Well, I'm really proud that Parliament voted 3-1 to ban smoking in cars when children are present. It was something that was included in the Children and Families Bill. It wasn't within a health bill, it was something that was instigated within the House of Lords. There's of course lots of different things on our plate, but actually we know that every single year, every single week in fact, around 500,000 children are exposed to second-hand smoke in a car, which is a lot more toxic and concentrated than it would be in the open air or inside a room within a house. We know that every single year around 300,000 children are having to see their GP because of the effects of that second-hand smoke, and will go on to suffer long-term within their later adult years. So it's not the only thing we should be contending with, but I'm very glad that Parliament did make that stand when we had the vote just the other week.
And finally, what vibe regarding the coalition do you get back in your constituency as opposed to maybe down here in the southeast?
Well, I represent a constituency in Liverpool. It's a Labour constituency, and every single week that I'm on the doorstep or that I have my surgery, I'm seeing the effects of the coalition government on my constituents. We still have unemployment rates too high. I've still got too many people that are desperately seeking work and can't find it, and I've got too many families within my constituency that are struggling to get by. They are in work, and yet they've seen their working tax credits reduced, and or just the impact of rising prices against what are wages that haven't moved in so many months under this coalition government, in fact so many years under this coalition government, and people are really struggling to get by. People can't afford holidays, they're having to make very difficult choices just going to the supermarket, and you read about it in the newspapers. I meet constituents that are really having to make the choice about whether they heat their home, have a hot bath, or whether they put food on the table, or they put food on the table for their kids, or whether they eat themselves. And I've got too many people going to food banks in my constituency, and for me, I think that's a shocking indictment of what is the 7th most industrialised nation in the world, and that's why I'll be campaigning for a Labour government come next year.